Have you ever felt an attraction so intense yet confusing that it leaves you wondering if it's love or just chaos? Well, if you're a Scorpio woman in love with a Gemini man, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most intriguing and explosive combinations in the zodiac. Scorpio and Gemini, two totally opposite worlds that, somehow, meet and spark an undeniable connection. On one side, there's the emotional intensity of Scorpio, and on the other, the wit and lightness of Gemini. But what happens when these two fall in love? Is it possible for the deepest and most unpredictable signs of the zodiac to make it work? Get ready, because we're about to dive into what could be the most thrilling and challenging love roller coaster you've ever seen. If you want to find out what the compatibility between a Scorpio and a Gemini is really like, you're in the right place. Let's go. First impressions, deep water and shifting air. Let's start with the basics. Scorpio is a water sign, emotional, intense, and deep. This sign represents the hidden, what lies beneath the surface, what isn't immediately visible but is felt in the depths of the soul. A Scorpio woman is enigmatic, magnetic, and her emotions run as deep as the ocean. On the other hand, we have Gemini, an air sign characterized by curiosity, a need for intellectual stimulation, and an ability to adapt to any situation. A Gemini man is restless, always on the move, changing topics, interests, and focus. He changes everything. So, what happens when the emotional intensity of a Scorpio woman meets the lightness and dynamism of a Gemini man? This is where the story begins. At first, these differences can generate a strong attraction, but also a lot of questions. Will they be compatible in the long run? Or will they clash like air and water in a storm? Initial attraction, the magic of opposites. Sometimes they say opposites attract, and this can certainly apply to the dynamic between a Scorpio woman and a Gemini man. From the very first moment, the Scorpio woman will be fascinated by Gemini's vibrant energy and his communication skills. He's fun, witty, always has something interesting to say, and that can feel like a breath of fresh air for Scorpio, who often finds herself grappling with her own emotional depths. For the Gemini man, the Scorpio woman represents a mystery to unravel. Scorpio doesn't reveal her cards right away, and this is something that intrigues Gemini a lot. He enjoys the intellectual challenge of getting to know someone as complex and emotionally reserved as Scorpio. Plus, Scorpio's intensity is something Gemini doesn't encounter very often, and that can create a very strong initial spark. However, as with any relationship, initial attraction isn't everything, and this is where the real challenges begin. Challenges of compatibility. Different ways of loving. One of the biggest challenges in a Scorpio and Gemini relationship is that they have very different approaches when it comes to expressing their feelings and emotional needs. The Scorpio woman craves depth, commitment, and an almost visceral emotional connection. For her, love is something transformative, something that's felt in every fiber of her being. She's loyal, doesn't take relationships lightly, and expects the same from her partner. Gemini, on the other hand, is much more light-hearted in his approach. For him, love is an adventure, an experience that should be fun, stimulating, and free. It's not that Gemini can't commit, but his way of doing so is much more flexible, and his need for freedom can sometimes make Scorpio's emotional intensity feel a bit overwhelming. Here lies the first conflict. While Scorpio seeks depth and stability, Gemini seeks variety and dynamism. If the Scorpio woman starts to feel insecure because of Gemini's unpredictable nature, she may become possessive or distrustful, which can cause problems in the relationship. On the other hand, if the Gemini man feels that Scorpio is trying to control him or limit his freedom, he may begin to distance himself, either emotionally or physically. Communication, key to success or failure. Communication is a vital aspect of any relationship, but in this zodiac pairing, it's absolutely crucial. Gemini is a master of words. He loves to talk, debate, and analyze things from an intellectual perspective. Scorpio, on the other hand, is much more reserved and prefers nonverbal communication. She feels things deeply, but doesn't always express them in words. This can create misunderstandings if Gemini doesn't pick up on Scorpio's emotional subtleties, and if Scorpio doesn't realize that Gemini isn't necessarily playing with her feelings, but simply needs to talk about everything, even superficial things. For this relationship to work, both need to learn to communicate in a way that respects their differences. Gemini must learn to take Scorpio's emotions seriously and not dismiss her feelings, while Scorpio must understand that Gemini's communication style doesn't always reflect a lack of depth or commitment. Fun times, connecting in the best of both worlds. Despite their differences, there are moments when the relationship between a Scorpio woman and a Gemini man can be incredibly fun and rewarding. Gemini can teach Scorpio to relax a little, to not take life and emotions so seriously all the time. He can pull her out of her shell and show her the light and fun side of life, something Scorpio sometimes forgets amidst her emotional intensity. On the other hand, Scorpio can give Gemini a deeper experience of love and life. She can teach him to go beyond the superficial, to explore his own emotions, and to understand that true connection goes far beyond an interesting conversation. Together, they can complement each other if they manage to overcome their differences. The intimate side, passion versus curiosity. In the physical aspect, this combination can also be somewhat contradictory yet interesting. The Scorpio woman is passionate, intense, and sensual, seeking an intimate connection that is as deep as it is emotionally transformative. Gemini, on the other hand, is more playful and curious in bed, always ready to experiment, though perhaps not with the same emotional intensity as Scorpio. This can be a space where both signs challenge and learn a lot from each other. Scorpio can teach Gemini the emotional depth that physical intimacy can have, while Gemini can show Scorpio that not everything has to be so serious, and that playfulness and curiosity can also be part of a healthy intimate life. Can it work long-term? Now for the big question, can this relationship work long-term? The answer is, it depends. As with any astrological pairing, it all comes down to how much they're willing to work together and respect their differences. If both signs can find a balance between Scorpio's emotional depth and Gemini's intellectual lightness, the relationship can have a very interesting dynamic. However, for that to happen, Gemini will need to learn to commit emotionally on a deeper level, and Scorpio will need to learn to give space and freedom without feeling like she's losing control of the relationship. In summary, the relationship between a Scorpio woman and a Gemini man is full of challenges, but also of rewards if they're both willing to work on their differences. It's not an easy combination, but if they manage to find common ground, they can experience a love story filled with passion, dynamism, and intensity. A journey that, without a doubt, won't be boring. So, if you're a Scorpio woman in love with a Gemini man, or vice versa, don't give up. As they say, the best things in life aren't always the easiest. Now I'd love for you to share your opinion and experience in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel.